Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Rosa Maria. Today I have a very simple, easy project for beginners, and this is to make a fabric tray. So it's very simple. I use Palum, a different type of Palum, so it kind of looks a little wrinkly here, but that's okay because that's what I had in hand. But I'm gonna still proceed and show you how to make the fabric tray. So let's get started. Tools and materials needed for this project is you'll be needing cotton fabric, this is a pen, this is a marker that is washable. You can use your pair of scissors or a rotary cutter, and also you're going to be needing a bone folder, a ruler of your choice that provides your measurements, and sewing pin. And the interface we're going to be using, this is called Palum 725. Next, what you're going to do is you need to cut 2 pieces of your fabric, and the size you're going to be cutting is 8.5 by 8.5, 2 pieces. And for the interface, you're going to cut 2 pieces of interface, and the size would be 7.5 inches by 7.5 inches. We're going to take one of our interface and we're going to fold it in half. Once we fold it in half, I'm going to use my template here, my mat, as a guide. And I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure 2 centimeters. And take my marking pen, 2 centimeters, and I'm gonna flip it, as you can see here, align it with my markings with my template here, and then I'm going to measure 6 centimeters, and I'm gonna mark it right over here. Once I do that, I'm gonna take my ruler, and these markings are going to help me to make a straight line. I'm going to mark it here, a nice straight line. Once I make that straight line, I'm going to take my pair of scissors. Make sure the scissors you use for cutting this type of interface is like a paper, is separate from your scissors you're going to be using from your fabric. So I'm gonna use that line as my guide to trim that off. And once we do that, it's going to look like a V here. And then we're gonna do the same thing to this side too. We're gonna make the markings again. Taking my ruler, 2 centimeters. Turning it around, marking 6 centimeters. Use my ruler to create that straight line. Do the marking, and then I'm going to cut that area off. And this is what it looks like. Let me just fix this here. Just part, oh, I just removed that part. Okay, that's good. So you're gonna create the same thing to these both sides. In order for you to do that, you are going to fold, as you can see again. And you're going to do the same thing for these 2 sides and create that V shape that we're looking for. So when you finish doing that on all 4 sides, this is what it should be looking like. So you'll have 2 interface, and each of them will have 4 V shapes in each corners. Next, make sure that you iron your fabric and remove any wrinkles on that fabric. So I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the printed side and face it down. And then I'm gonna take one of the interface and lay it flat. You can eyeball it just to make sure that each four corners are even. You can use a ruler that can help you assist you to make sure that there's even spacing. And then now I'm gonna take my iron and I'm gonna press it. And one more thing I forgot to mention, make sure that the sticky side of the interface is facing down, okay? And then you can press. But always follow the instructions that are provided when you receive the interface. So I'm just ironing it, making sure it's nice and flat. Okay. I'm gonna give it just some time to cool off. And then if you have to press it again, because you want to make sure that the interface is really glued to the fabric. I'm going to let this cool down. And this is the second one that I finished. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sewing pins. I'm going to fold, as you can see, the fabric. And I'm going to take my sewing pins and I'm going to secure that corner, because we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch right across. So we're going to use the end of this interface as their guide to stitch right across. So you're going to do the same thing to all four corners. Make sure everything is nicely aligned. And place your sewing pins. And let me do these so I can finish up. So once I finish doing all four corners, we'll go to the sewing machine. And also you're going to do the same thing to the second piece of pattern. Okay. And make sure you do the same thing to the other piece. And I'll meet you at the sewing machine so we can continue and sew across this line here, and I'll show you. I'm here at the sewing machine and I'm gonna start to sew. So I wanna make sure that I use the interface, as you can see here. I use it as my guide to start stitching right on this next to it. So here I go. Oh, let me just fix this here. I'm going to do back stitch. And now I'm going to start to sew. And back stitch. Hopefully you can see it in the camera what it looks like. So I'm going to do one more. Okay. Here I go. Okay, just want to make sure, because I removed the sewing pin. And by doing that, I shifted everything. So I'm going to put the sewing pin back. Okay. And here I go again. And remove the sewing pin out of the way so I can stitch better. Okay, back stitch. And then you're gonna do the same thing to the other two sides. And once you finish doing the stitches for these two sides, I'll show you the next step. Now that we finished stitching these sides, what we're going to do now is we're going to trim this extra piece of fabric. just trim it. Just make sure you don't cut the threads. Just trimming it. And I have one more here to trim. Here you go. Oops. Okay. Now that we have those 4 corners trimmed, let me trim this one a little bit more. Okay, now it looks much better. So now I'm gonna face it this way, face the print side facing up. And then I'm going to take the other fabric and make sure that you also completed sewing all 4 corners and also trimming the extra 4 corners fabric. Now I'm going to place it in like this, as you can see. And make sure that, as you can see here, this side is facing this way and make sure this side is facing the other way. And then I'm gonna take and make sure you have it lined up. It's really lined together. And then take your pen, your sewing pen here, to keep it together. And I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Make sure it's aligned. And here we go to the next one, making sure it's aligned and even. Pin it. Last one here, do the same thing. Make sure that it's even, aligned. And here's the pins. And then you're gonna make sure that you pin, because you pin these areas because we're gonna sew around. But here I'm going to leave about 2 inches open, and I'm going to put a pin facing out so that reminds me where I stop and where I begin to sew, so I don't completely sew all around. So we just need an opening so we can flip the fabric inside out. And now I'm going to continue to pin the other pin here, and I'm going to pin this side too. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to start to sew all around here, and remember to leave about 2 inches of fabric open. So let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, now I'm gonna stitch on top. I'm gonna use the edge here as my guide. I removed the sewing pin where I had it as a marking where I'm gonna start sewing. Back stitch, and then carefully making my little turns. And removing the sewing pin as I'm sewing. Okay, I'm coming to the end, and this is where, I thought I was coming to the end. Okay, I still have more. I still have more to go. Okay. Okay. I spoke too soon. Okay, here now we are finally coming to the end. Let me just make sure I make that turn. Okay, here we are. Back stitch. And we are done. Now that we finished stitching around and we left 5 inches opening, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just trim off the little corners, making sure I don't trim off the thread. That makes it easier to turn the fabric inside out. Any extra threads that are around, just trim them off. And now we're going to turn it inside out. Okay. All right. Is starting to take form, which is great. And just go back in there and just pull out the little corners. You can use your fingers to do this. Just want to make sure all the corners are out. And then I'm going to fold this and fold it in, making sure it's even. Got some extra threads. Let me remove it. I'm going to start taking my sewing pins and just using that to show where we're going to stitch across, close it. Okay. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and we are going to stitch at least a 1/4 seam allowance around. So let's go to the sewing machine. All right, back stitch, and now I'm going to remove the pins as I am sewing. Making sure I am going around the circle here as a little circle corner. Okay, I got that. Just lift this, okay. And let me continue to sew. I'm coming to the end. Back stitch, and I am done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on making fabric trays. If you liked the tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and also share with your friends and your family. And if you're not a subscriber, please click on the subscribe button and also click on the bell. When you click on the bell, YouTube notifies you when I do have a new video to upload. I'm going to have all the materials and all the tools listed in the description below. Bye.